Okay, good evening everyone. Today we're going to continue our lecture in regards to negotiable instrument law. As you can see, during our last PowerPoint from the prelim period, that was our last topic. We have departed prelim with an introduction on what is negotiable instrument. Tonight, this is the first PowerPoint presentation, first lecture for the midterm coverage. And this is the first lecture for the prelim coverage, in which we will discuss negotiable instrument law or Act number 2031. But first of all, let me credit the following researchers: James Clifford Bonissa, Angelo Busio, Sara Kagata, Joseph Bentuso, Mary Ann Caday, Kenzo Burun, and Sharmi Canonego. Okay, let's continue. As I've said, our usual tradition, we have a pre-test and post-test examination questions. Okay? Here are the questions. Number 1, what are the functions of negotiable instrument? Number 2, what are the two distinctive features of a negotiable instrument? Then, third question is, what is negotiable instrument? And then, cite the requisites of negotiability. Then, how is negotiability of an instrument determined? Number 6 question is, what are the kinds of a promissory note, or what are the kinds of promissory notes? Then give at least 3 types or kinds of bills of exchange. Number 8, what is bill of exchange? Number 9, what is negotiability? And last question, explain what is debenture. Okay. Let us answer the question. What are the functions of negotiable instrument? 1, it operates as a substitute for money. B, it is a means of creating and transferring credit. C, it facilitates the sale of goods. D, it increases the purchasing medium in circulation. E, it is an evidence of contracts. And number 2, question, what are the two distinctive features of a negotiable instrument? The answer is negotiability and accumulation of secondary contracts. Then, third question, what is the nature of a negotiable instrument? Answer, it is a written contract for the payment of money, which is intended as a substitute for money and passes from one person to another as money, in such a manner as to give a holder in due course the right to hold the instrument free from defenses available to prior party. Number 4 question. Cite the requisites of negotiability, or what is negotiable instrument. 1, it must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer. Second element, it must contain an unconditional promise to pay or order to pay a sum of money or certain in money. C, must be payable in demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. D, it must be payable to order or bearer. And E, when the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Number 5 question. How negotiability of an instrument be determined? The answer to the question is test 1 and ends. What are the kinds of promissory notes? 1, certificate of deposit. 2, bonds. 6, debenture. Another question is, give at least 3 types of or kinds of bills of exchange. They are any of the following: draft, inland and foreign bill, time draft, sight or demand bill, trade acceptance, bankers acceptance. What is bill of exchange? Bill of exchange is an conditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bearer. What is negotiability? Answer: negotiability is that attribute or property whereby a bill or a note or check may pass from one hand to hand, similar to money, so as to give the holder in due course the right to hold the instrument and to collect the sum payable for himself, free from defenses. Explain what is debenture, the 10th question. Answer: it is a promissory note or bond backed by the general credit of a corporation and usually not secured by a mortgage or lien on any specific. Okay, let us discuss. What is the nature of negotiable instrument? The nature of negotiable instrument, it is a written contract for the payment of money which is intended as a substitute for money and passes from one person to another as money in such a manner as to give the holder in due course. Okay. What are the requisites of negotiability or elements of negotiable instrument? 1. It must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer. 2. Must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. C. Must be payable on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. D. It must be payable to order or bearer. And E. Must, when the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. What is meant by negotiation? Negotiation is a transfer of an instrument from one person to another in such a manner as to constitute the transferee a holder thereof. A holder is the payee or endorsee of a bill or note who is in possession of it or the bearer thereof. How is negotiability of an instrument determined? Test. 1 should determine if the instrument on its face complies with the requirements under Section 1 of the Negotiable Instrument Law. It's found in 1989 bar. In determining the negotiability of an instrument, consider the instrument in its entirety and only what appears on its face. It can also be seen in Caltex Philippines versus Court of Appeals 212 scrap. Okay. When negotiability ends, Section 47 of the Negotiable Instrument provides that an instrument negotiable in its origin continues to be negotiable until it has been restrictively endorsed or discharged by payment or otherwise. Note, however, that restrictive endorsement makes the instrument non-negotiable only if it is the first type. It prevents further negotiation of the instrument and not the two other types which constitute the endorsee, the agent or trustee. Examples and notes. The negotiability of the instrument is not affected if it was issued for an illegal consideration. Hence, an instrument that contains all the requisites under Section 1 of the Negotiable Instrument Law is still negotiable even if it was issued in payment for killing a political enemies of the maker or drawer. Found in 207 and 2009 bar exam. 2. Non-acceptance or lack of endorsement does not affect the negotiability of the instrument. 3. Marking the instrument non-negotiable does not affect the negotiability of the instrument. Found in 2000. 4. A separate written contract that is not mentioned in the instrument does not affect the negotiability of the instrument even if the separate contract contains conditions. And then, what's the governing law? Code of Commerce. In addition to Act Number 2031, which is otherwise known as the Negotiable Instrument Law, or NIL for short, negotiable instruments are governed by the provisions of the Code of Commerce that were not impliedly repealed by the NIL. For example, Code of Commerce provisions on cross-checks are still enforced because there is no provision in the NIL that deals with the cross-checks. It can be seen and confirmed in Chan 1 versus Tan Kim, 109 Philippines 706, 1960. 3.02, the new civil code applies sublatorily. Example, Article 1216 of the new civil code, in the case of Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company versus Court of Appeals, et al. And 149 SCRA, 116, page 169. It is a 1991 case. Now, applicability of the NIL. All the provision of the NIL can be applied only to negotiable instruments. If the instrument is not negotiable, the pertinent provisions of the Civil Code or pertinent special laws should apply. Seen in the case of GSIS versus Court of Appeals, Volume 170, SCRA, 500, page 533. This is a 1989 case. And this can also be found in the case of PNB. Kaufman versus PNB. Volume 42, Philippines. Page 182. This is a 1921 case, a very old case. Now, the NIL can be applied but only by analogy if the instrument is not negotiable, if there is no law that can be applied. Case in point is Borromeo versus Sun, volume 317 SCRA, page 176. This is a 1991 case, 1999 case. Foreign laws. Decisions of the courts in the United States and in England based on the American Uniform Negotiable Instrument Law and the Bills of Exchange Act of 1882 can be applied in this jurisdiction because those foreign laws serves as the basis for NIL. Now, functions of the negotiable instrument, which is asked in the 2015 bar. It operates as a substitute for money. It is a means of creating and transferring credit. It facilitates sales of goods. It increases the purchasing medium in circulation. And it is evidence of contract. Example, it may be evidence of contract of loan. Now, negotiable instrument is not illegal tender. It is found in Section 52 of the New Central Bank Act for short, NCBA for short. And it is found also in RA, Republic Act number 7653, which provides that only notes and coins issued by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas are considered legal tender. Take note, this is very important because people think that negotiable instrument can be a legal tender. No, it's not, because the central bank provides a policy. Section 60 provides of the same law that checks are not legal tender. Section 60 provides that checks representing demand deposits do not have legal tender power, and their acceptance in the payment of debts, both public and private, is at the option of the creditor. However, under the same provision, a check which has been cleared and credited to the account of the creditor shall be equivalent to delivery to the creditor of cash in an amount equal to the amount credited to his. B. Even managers and cashier checks are not legal tender. They are not money or cash. It is seen in their 2,000 bar. However, there are also considered good as cash in practice because the drawer and the drawee is the same bank. It is therefore backed by the resources of the bank. Excuse me. This is seen in the case of Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company versus Chok, GR number 172652. It was decided on November 26, 2014. Now, coins as legal tender. Pursuant to Section 52 of RA number 7653 and Bangkos Sentral Pilipinas Circular number 537 series of 2006, the maximum amount of coins to be considered as legal tender is adjusted as follows. When you pay 1,000 pesos, it must be for denomination of 1 peso or 5 peso and 10 peso coins. When your obligation is 100 pesos, illegal tender for denomination of 1 centavo, 5 centavo, 10 centavo, and 25 centavos. Now, two distinctive features of the negotiable instrument. Negotiability. What do you mean by that? It is that attribute or property whereby a bill or note or check may pass from one hand similar to money, so as to give the holder in due course the right to hold the instrument and to collect the sum payable for himself free from defenses. Again, another distinctive features of negotiable instrument is accumulation of secondary contract. When you say secondary contracts, they are picked up and carried along with them as they are negotiated from one person to another, or in the course of negotiation of a negotiable instrument, a series of juridical ties between the parties thereto arise either by law or by. Now, what are the kinds of negotiable instruments? 1. Bill of exchange. Bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bearer. It's found in Section 2626, Section 126 of the NIL. Now, promissory note. A negotiable promissory note is an unconditional promise in writing made by one person to another, signed by the maker, engaging to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time is sum certain in money to order or to bearer. Where a note is drawn to the maker's own order, it is not complete until endorsed by him. It's found in Section 184 in. Now, kinds of bill of exchange. 1. Draft. Draft is as used synonymously with bill of exchange, although it normally refers to a bill of exchange used in documentary exchange like letters of credit transaction. What else? Inland and foreign bill. An inland bill is a bill which is, or on the face, it purports to be both drawn and payable within the Philippines. Any other bill is a foreign bill. In other words, inland bill is one that is found and transacted within the Philippine territory, and when it's outside, it's called foreign bill. What else? Another kind of bill of exchange, time draft. Time draft is payable at a fixed date. Another is a sight or demand draft. Draft that is payable when the holder presents it for payment. Another is trade acceptance. A bill that is used in contracts of sale, whether the seller as drawer orders the buyer as drawer to pay a sum certain same seller or pay. And then, banker's acceptance. What is that? It is a time draft across the face of which the drawee has written the word accepted. And then, what is a check? A check is a bill of exchange drawn on a bank payable on demand. Okay. Let us go to the kinds of promissory notes. What are those? One, certificate of deposit. It's a form of promissory note which is a written acknowledgement of a bank of its receipt of a certain sum with a promise to repay the same. What else? Bonds. Bonds is a certificate or evidence of a debt on which the issuing company or governmental body promises to pay the bondholders a specified amount of interest for a specified length of time and to repay the loan on the expiration. Let us talk about debenture. What is a debenture? It is a promissory note or bond backed by the general credit of a corporation and usually not secured by a mortgage or lien on any specific property. Now, let us go to cases when a bill of exchange can be treated as a promissory note. The following are the instances when bill may be treated as a promissory note by the holder, which can be seen in Section 17, Paragraph E, and 130 negotiable instrument 2015, 2011, 2005, and 1998 bar. They appear as a form of questions. Now, when the drawer and the drawee are the same person, treat them as a bill of exchange, as a promissory note. What else? When the drawee is a fictitious person. What else? The drawee has no capacity to contract. What else? The instrument is so ambiguous that there is no doubt. There is doubt whether it is. Okay. Now, negotiable promissory note versus negotiable bill of exchange. Let us compare the difference. In a promissory note, there is unconditional promise. In a bill of exchange, there is also unconditional but order. In a promissory note, there are two parties that are involved. In a bill of exchange, there are three parties because there is a bank. And then, make primarily liable. Maker. The maker in a promissory note is primarily liable, where in the bill of exchange, the drawer is secondarily liable. In a promissory note, only one presentment is necessary. While in the bill of exchange, generally, there are two presents from the person and then to the bank. In a promissory note, exactly to a person only. For payment only in promissory note and acceptance in a bill of exchange. Now, bill of exchange versus check. In an ordinary bill of exchange, it is not drawn on a deposit, and it is not necessary that a drawer of a bill of exchange should have funds in the hands of the drawee. Another, debt of the drawer of a bill of exchange with the knowledge of the bank does not revoke the authority of the banker to pay. What else? Bill of exchange may be presented for payment within a reasonable time after its last negotiation. The authority in point is Section 71. Now let us go to a check. A check is necessary that a check is drawn on a deposit and there is a bank account. In check, debt of a drawer of a check with the knowledge of by the bank revokes the authority of the banker to pay. In a check, it must be presented for payment within a reasonable time after its issue. It can be seen in Section 6. Are the following commercial papers negotiable instrument under NIL? Let us answer. Cross-check. Cross-check usually negotiable as it normally complies with the requirements under Section 1 of NIL but issued for a special purpose and can be negotiated only once because it's a cross-check. What about trade acceptance? Trade acceptance is a negotiable one. It is a bill of exchange addressed by the seller of the goods to the buyer. However, Section 1 must be complied with. What about postal money order? A postal money order is not negotiable as it is governed by the postal rules and regulations which may be inconsistent with the NIL and can only be negotiated once. It appeared in the form of a question, bar question 1980 and 2000. What about warehouse receipt? It is not negotiable instrument under the NIL because it represents goods, not money. However, it may be negotiable under the warehouse receipts law, under which the concept of negotiability is different. As for instance, there is no secondary liability and the concept of holder in due course is not applicable. What about a pawn ticket? That is not negotiable. It does not represent money but pawned articles. What about treasury warrant? It's appeared in 2005 bar. It is a non-negotiable thing, being payable out of particular fund. What about bill of lading? Still not negotiable instrument under NIL because it represents goods, not money. However, it may be negotiable document of title under the new civil code of or NCC, like the warehouse receipts law. Negotiability of document of title under the new civil code has a different concept. For instance, there is no secondary liability and the concept of holder in due course is not possible. What about trust receipts? Is that a negotiable instrument? No, not negotiable under the NIL because it is an evidence of strict security interest of the entrustee over the goods. What about cash disbursement voucher? Still not negotiable under an NIL because it is nothing more than a receipt evidencing payment. What about aval? Aval is not negotiable because it is a guarantee for the payment of drafts provided for under Articles 486 and 487 of the Code of Commerce. What about letters of credit? It is not negotiable by nature. It is payable to a specified beneficiary and payment by the issuing bank and is subject to the condition that the beneficiary submit the required documents. It's found in 1976 and 2000. What about electronic messages? Electronic messages received by banks from its investor clients as instructions in managing the client's peso and foreign currency account are not negotiable instrument under the NIL. The electronic messages are not signed by the investor clients as opposed drawers of the bill of exchange. They do not contain an unconditional order to pay a sum certain in money as the payment is supposed to come from specific fund or account of the investor client, and they are not payable to order or bearer but to a specifically designated third party. Thus, the electronic messages are not bills of exchange. Case in point, Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited Philippines branches versus Court of Industrial Relations, GR number 1660-18, decided on June 14. Now, at the same electronic messages are also not acceptances because they did not constitute the written and signed manifestation of each bank to a drawer's order to pay the money. This is a decision in the case of Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited Philippine Branches versus CIR. Now, persons involved in the negotiable instrument. One, maker. Who is a maker? It's a person who makes a promissory note and promises to pay the amount stated therein. What about the payee? Payee is the obligee That is the person who, by the terms of the note or bill, is to receive payment. What is a drawer? Drawer is not one that is made by a carpenter. It is a person. In the parlance of negotiable instrument, it is a person who draws the bill of exchange and orders the drawee to pay some certain money. What about a drawee? A drawee is a person to whom the order to pay is addressed in a means. What about a holder? A holder is the person who is in possession of a bearer instrument, or an endorsee of an order instrument who is in possession thereof. A holder is the obligee, a person who can enforce payment of the instrument. What about a referee? What is a referee? In case of a need, a person who may be designated in the instrument is the person who may be resorted to by the parties in case of dispute. Just like in a basketball, referee decides. This is also true in IL. In case of dispute, there must be one person who can make it, and it's the referee. And that is the end of our lecture for the first slide, or the first PowerPoint presentation in the midterm.